Welcome back to Ahead of the Curve. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Teed. Today is our 100th episode of the podcast, and I feel like I should be a lot more excited about that, but to be honest, just struggling to even record this right now. You have probably heard by Instagram or my newsletter that that our buddy passed away, little Nico. He passed away last Monday, and it has been one of the hardest things that I've ever been through. And let me tell you, grief and the toll that it takes on your body is unbelievable. But yeah, so that's kind of the headspace that I'm in right now. But I have a schedule that I'm trying to keep with, and it does help me to keep busy and keep my mind off of things because otherwise I just fixate on it. And I work from home, and he was my shadow. So today I'm going to be trying my best, and you'll just have to bear with me. I'm going to be talking about how we can empower parents navigating school physical education for their children with scoliosis. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some things to be on the lookout for, some ways that you can empower your child and be proactive with teachers, and some things that you don't need to stress about. So we'll get around to all that. And then I'll also give you some resources at the end that might be helpful for you to just dig deeper and learn more for yourself, empower yourself, and equip yourself to manage this season with your child. So if you are a child or a parent with a child that has to wear brace, things might look a little bit differently to you than someone else. If you are really planning to be strict and stringent with brace wearing, phys ed might be a little bit hard depending on what activity they're participating in. And if that is the case, that's something that you would discuss with your doctor, and then have the doctor write a note that, kind of at this child's will, they'll be able to participate or not participate in a particular activity. It is important for children to understand their curve as best as possible. There's a lot of resources for that. If you have somebody local to you that is a Schroth method practitioner, I highly recommend seeking them out and getting into a intensive program with them so that their child can understand how to best support their curve and support their spine. If that is something that you don't have access to, there is some online resources for parents and children with scoliosis, and Schroth Boss is one of those. Dr. Kate is the head of that, and she really does a wonderful job of providing support and help for parents who have parents of a child with scoliosis, and then children with scoliosis. So those are two avenues to go if you're not sure where to begin. And the next thing that I want to reassure you is activity is safe for children with scoliosis. In fact, it's encouraged for children with scoliosis. So the more active that somebody is, the better off they are for preventing that curve progression. The more sedentary the child is, the higher likelihood that their curve is going to progress. And that there's a lot to do with that. The one thing is people who are more active, they tend to have more muscle to their body, more structure to the body, and they tend to be able to hold themselves in a more centered alignment versus when somebody is more sedentary. They don't have the muscular strength, the core strength to hold themselves in an aligned position. So they tend to hang out in their curve in that asymmetrical patterning, and then that encourages the curve to progress. And then the other thing is when somebody is more active, you're changing positions a lot more often than somebody that is more sedentary. So you're switching up the tensioning on the tissues versus using the same tensioning on the tissues over and over again when you are just being more in a seated position, a relaxed position versus active position. And there's a couple of things that I recommend, activities that I recommend that children use some caution with scoliosis. And I'm not even sure that this is something that is still done. I do believe it is, but gymnastics and tumbling. It's great if this is something that has been done leading up to diagnosis or under the supervision of somebody who really understands how to instruct somebody in those activities. But if they're doing tumbling and gymnastics in a gym class and your child has scoliosis, that can present as a little bit of a problem just because the supervision isn't quite there. The understanding of just how to instruct somebody through those movements isn't there. So it can be a little bit more of a sticky situation for a child during that gym class session. That would be the main thing that I would recommend veering away from as far as gym classes go. Things like climbing, things like climbing are actually very good for a child with scoliosis. That's an activity that I recommend a lot of parents get their child involved in because it helps to build upper body strength and back strength by doing that pulling motion over and over again. So that could be an activity that somebody looks a little bit more forward to if you have scoliosis. And it's important that as soon as your child is diagnosed and you and your child come up with a plan as far as how you want to navigate physical education, that you have a meeting with your teacher, with your child's teacher, just to educate them about the condition. And there's a lot of resources for being able to do that. And the main resource I recommend is scoliosis.org. And there's a page on there. I'm going to list like a lot of links in the show notes that you can provide, that you can work your way through and educate yourself. But there's also some resources on scoliosis.org under the tab advocacy. And that's just a way that you're able to educate your community and teachers about that. And it's important that you not only advocate for your child, but you empower your child to be able to stand up for themselves. So if you've had a conversation with the teacher and they're still putting your child in a scenario where maybe something is painful and it feels uncomfortable in their body or it doesn't feel quite right, you want to give your child the courage to be able to stand up for themselves and speak up in that scenario and not just be quiet and do as they're told. Um, Obviously, you want them to do that with respect. You want them to speak up with respect to their teachers, but um, this isn't a scenario for them to be quiet and obedient and push through discomfort in their bodies. And you will have no idea the impact that will have on that child long term by providing them that safe space to be able to do that. A lot of times, children in general feel like they kind of get brushed aside, but especially when you have scoliosis and you're getting toted around to doctors' offices and they're poking and prodding at you and telling you you need to wear a brace or you need to have surgery or you can do this, you can't do that. You start to lose your sense of self and sense of identity. And that's a dangerous place to be in as an adolescent in general, but especially as somebody who has a different shaped spine. And by giving them the tools to advocate for themselves, that is going to carry over long term in their relationships with their partners, in their relationships with their coworkers, their boss. Just really it trickles into every avenue of their life and their future. And this is just a very formative time for them. So you can kind of take this in two different directions. You can, really create a lot of trauma or add to the trauma of having the condition, or you can empower them to take control of the situation for themselves. So those are, the biggest things. Just not being afraid of activity for your child after they've been diagnosed, educating yourself as much as a parent as you can, having conversations with their teachers and even their peers, and then empowering your child to be able to speak up. Those are the biggest ways that you can support and affirm your child in this stage of their life. Thanks for hanging in with me today. I am going to be taking a little hiatus in September. It is very timely. I'm recording this at the end of July, and I will hopefully feel a little bit more up to recording these. And anyway, I appreciate you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And make sure that if you are enjoying this podcast, that you give it a rating or you review it so that other people are able to find it and learn more about how to take control of their condition. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, stay well and stay ahead of the curve.